playing Heroic against Ross Merriam playing Jeskai Tokens. So game number 3 is where we're going to be. You see a Flooded Strand and a Shivan Reef there for Merriam. On Lossett's side, of course, the white bordered basics helping us here in the booth, in the plains, and then a Temple of Enlightenment as he does finish scrying. So we'll take a look at these players' deck lists as Merriam takes his 3rd turn of the game.
Yeah, a ton on the line here. Remember, this entire pod, all the players are 1-1 going into this. So the loser of this match will play in the elimination round, whereas the winner will be safe, moving on to later in the day, if not to day 2.
Why don't you see what Ross can put together here as he's going to sacrifice a Flooded Strand. So maybe we have a Raise the Alarm coming in just a moment from him. But it'll be a Temple of Triumph instead. We are being informed now that Jim Davis did get the job done over Derek Sheets. 2-0, so Blue White Control does take down Abzan Reanimator.
So Davis with a 1-2 finish to the pod, not what he was hoping for, but did pull it out in the end. For Sheets, that 0-3 finish will put him into an elimination match.
Yeah. Heliod's Pilgrim here for Lossett. He's going to go searching. And we're going to see what he will be searching up in just a moment here. It'll be a copy of Ordeal of Thassa. And in just a moment, a passing of the turn back Merriam's way. Goblin Rabblemaster, a Goblin token, which will likely run face forward into Heliod's Pilgrim, and just a passing of the turn here for Ross. So getting the powerful 3-mana spell online from his deck.
And Rabblemaster is exactly the kind of card you want to have from the Jeskai deck, mainly because their removal suite against Blue-White Heroic is tenuous at best. They don't actually have very many ways to answer a creature once it gets a 5th point of toughness. So the Jeskai deck has to end up racing at some point. They can't. Like, when you saw that match last round with Brad, once he stabilized against the Heroic deck, he had all day. It was just pretty clear that man was never going to win. Ross will never get that level of security in this matchup. What he'll get to do is maybe throw one wrench in the gears for Joe, and then Ross will have to turn the corner and win the game.
Well, Joe Lossett, his 4th turn of the game, see what he can put together here. He'll start things off with a Temple of Enlightenment, take a look at the top card, and figure out exactly where he would like to put it.
Remember, the other players in this bracket, Dylan Donegan and Jeff Hoagland, are the other 2 players there. Dylan Donegan was also playing Jeskai Tokens, whereas Hoagland was on Teamer today.
No surprise there if you know Jeff. He's been playing Teamer for some time in Standard.
He was playing Teamer before Teamer was the thing.
Yeah. Perhaps Brian Kibler copied off of him. Ha!
Just the land for Joe, so we'll get to go back to Ross's turn and see how much pressure he can put on the board here.
A little surprising to see just a land, no action, especially when he did search up an Ordeal of Thassa. Does make you wonder exactly what's going on if you're Merriam.
Well, it's a really scary spot for the Jeskai Tokens deck to be in, or really for both players. Both these decks play a lot of instant speed cards. No one really wants to tap out here, but both of them need to try to win the game. So there's this delicate balance of applying pressure and at the same time leaving mana up for your spells.
You want to talk about applying pressure. That's exactly what Jeskai Ascendancy will do. That's going to come into play. Merriam going to follow up with a Temple of Triumph. Top card going to stay on top, and Ross will pass the turn back over to Joe. Joe will untap the Temple of Enlightenment. It's time to draw a card, and we'll see what Joe can put together on his 5th turn of the game. His turn 4 was very unexciting.
Well, that was a big move by Ross Merriam. So in the situation that Joe had a stubborn denial, Ross didn't even have an untapped land to go with the Jeskai Ascendancy, so it didn't matter that it didn't have ferocity. That would have countered the Ascendancy and been a huge blow for Ross as he has to spend this turn tapped out. But Ross took the risk, and I think he's going to be rewarded by it next turn.
Well, there's a favorite hoplite. Tranquil Cove will gain Joe a little bit of life. But what is he setting up? You can see 2 Defiant Strikes in his hand. He's got some stuff over there. We know about the Ordeal of Thassa. You can see God's Willing. You can see Heliod's Pilgrim. And there's an Aqueous form as well. So he's got a lot of options. He's just pacing the game in a kind of weird fashion.
Joe had a hand with a lot of auras in it, a decent number of spells, but didn't really have a good creature to put things on. His first creature of the game was Heliod's Pilgrim, and he's not thrilled about suiting that card up, as you'd prefer to be enchanting something else.
Well, there is Aqueous form. Trigger Heroic, of course. That'll make the favorite hoplite into a 2/3.
Joe's going to try to get this favorite hoplite out of removal spell range. So he's playing the Aqueous form on his own turn to be as efficient as he can with his mana. Remember, once it gets to a 5th point of toughness, it's hard. Ross will be forced to have one of his sideboarded Glare of Heresies if he wants to remove it.
Which he does have in his hand currently. Caught a glimpse of that. Also has a Lightning Strike. You can see another copy of Jeskai Ascendancy as well. A lot of options here, but the big trick when playing this Jeskai tokens deck is how do you sequence your spells, especially when you have Ascendancy in play, and you're playing against a heroic deck that does have mana available, which can mean a ton of things are available. God's Willing, Stubborn Denial, Feet of Resistance, and who knows what else.
Well, now that Ross has an Ascendancy in play, it does mean that Ross has the inevitability. The amount of value he'll get off that Jeskai Ascendancy will eventually overpower what Joe's doing. But you're right, Ross still has to be really careful with his sequencing here.
3 mana. Is it perhaps time for another Jeskai Ascendancy? He's actually going to go with a copy of Hordling Outburst, trigger the Ascendancy. So it's time to draw and discard first, and we'll see where he goes from there.
And I like the play by Ross. He could set up for a really big late game with another Jeskai Ascendancy, but by first playing Hordling Outburst here, I think he's done a much better job in that he's recognizing that he has to win. He can't actually wait forever here, so he's going to need some creatures on the board.
Let's see what he wants to discard. I'll go with Glare of Heresy. Ooh, wow.
And
a card that's so powerful in this matchup.
If I'm Joe, I'm not. I'm worried.
Yes.
You know, you just put your first aura on a white creature, and your opponent starts discarding Glare of Heresies. That's worrisome. It means he just doesn't care about your game plan.
I would be terrified. One could argue that might be one of Ross's best cards in this matchup. Make a Goblin token.
Well, if Ross doesn't think he can kill Joe's creatures because of God's Willings and the such, he may just board to start looting away all his removal. As it is, I think Ross's plan is to let Joe attack and then use this Erase in his hand to surprise block the favorite hoplite. He'll get rid of Aqueous Form, Jeskai Ascendancy will untap all his creatures, and he'll just kill it using combat.
Here's the Goblin Realm Master has made a Goblin token. Now it's the red zone. The question is what's going to come in the red zone. It's just going to be the Goblin, which is just a 1/1 right now.
The problem with that plan is all it takes is a spell for Joe to target the hoplite and he wouldn't lose it.
It doesn't take much at all. Joe looks like he's going to do some blocking here. The Goblin token will bite the dust.
So it may actually be on Ross. Maybe the Erase is saved for a card like Ordeal of Heliod. If Ross just wants to race, he can deny Joe life gain at the very least.
Can deny him cards too. He knows about the Ordeal of Thassa that's in hand. So there are some options to be had here with Erase. We can't forget about the Lightning Strike that's in his hand as well. You talk about a racing situation. That can allow him to, of course, burn Joe and then untap all the creatures to block if necessary. So
not just a racing situation, but an E-racing situation.
yes. There's the Ordeal. Trigger Heroic on the Hoplite. It'll become a 3/4. But it wants to be so much more.
And remember the second half of that trigger. Favorite Hoplite's not going to take damage this turn. So Ross can't ambush it and kill it. He can block it. If he wants to erase the Aqueous Arm, he can block it, but that's about it.
It looks like he wants to take away the Ordeal. Now, the interesting thing in this situation is, will Merriam draw and discard? The answer looks to be yes. I wasn't sure if he's going to activate Ascendancy or not, as his hand right now is Jeskai Ascendancy and Lightning Strike, but it looks like he will. And the question is, what card does he want to discard? As it looks like he picked up a copy of Raise the Alarm.
Well, the second Ascendancy isn't always necessary. I think you'll see him loot nearly every time here just because he wants to build up to things like Treasure Cruise. But you're right that sometimes there's this, it's the Merfolk looter dilemma. Do you actually want to loot when your hand's pretty good across the board?
A mistake I have certainly made over the course of my Magic playing career. What's the worst that could happen?
Just always tap it?
Well, sometimes when I'm not supposed to. Because what's the worst that could happen? And then you draw what is the worst thing that could happen, and then you're left with a real decision when you probably shouldn't have looted at all. But that was also when Treasure Cruise wasn't a thing.
For me, it was this learning curve. At first, I never looted when I had cards when I had only cards I liked. And then I was like, no. Someone's like, you should just loot all the time. So then I was like, okay. And then I just looted all the time. And then sometimes I got myself in really bad situations. And I was like, this looting thing is really hard.
Defiant Strike. Gonna make that favorite hoplite a little bit bigger. Of course, Joe will get to draw a card. Looks like some damage is gonna come across, so he just wants to get a little bit deeper into his deck at this point. Battle-Wise Hoplite looks like it might be the follow-up here for Lossett. And it is. So that's going to come down. It'll be a passing of the turn, but it's always scary when a Jeskai Ascendancy player untaps with a bunch of land in play and lands in hand. Excuse me, and spells in hand.
And this is such an interesting board because Ross is just, he has to race here. Joe's sitting on a decent-sized creature, at least one God's Willing. Ross isn't going to kill anything. He just needs to kill Joe faster than Joe can kill him, which is hard to do.
Ascendancy number 2 is going to come into play. Everybody's going to attack now. Merriam has the ability to deal a lot of damage. Rebel Master trigger here makes that thing pretty big.
The 3 goblins on the bottom of the screen are 2/2s. The one on the top is a 1/1, where the Rabble Master did get a pump trigger, so he is going to be a 7/3.
Well, it's all set to block now with 1 mana available. And again, that can only be a certain number of things in this deck, though those things are pretty good in God's Willing, Defiant Strike, and Stubborn Denial. The question is, how does Joe want to block in this situation? He's certainly under the gun.
Lossett's remaining hand is a God's Willing, a land, and a Heliod's Pilgrim. The Pilgrim, I think, is the best part of the hand. So even if Ross deals Joe a lot of damage here, Joe can search up a white ordeal, which could be really backbreaking to Ross.
Well, Lossett is going to try to figure out how to block. And it looks like he's come to a decision that he's happy enough with. That's what he's going to go with. Now, Merriam is going to tap some mana. This will be a copy of Raise the Alarm. 2 Jeskai Ascendancy triggers, as well as these creatures getting to untap, so they have vigilance, kind of.
So, yeah, originally Joe wanted to chump the Rabble Master and eat the 1/1 tokens, but now that Raise the Alarm was cast, everything pumped again, so that Battle-Wise Hoplite went from winning combat to now trading. And the 6 damage that Joe thought he was going to take from Goblin tokens, that's now 9.
Hordeling Outburst is going to get discarded. That's always terrifying. 2 soldier tokens are going to come into play. So a bunch of damage is going to come across. Joe is going to, it looks like, use God's Willing, maybe to save the Hoplite. Because right now the Hoplite's actually losing in battle because of the 2 Ascendancy triggers. So,
oh, you're right. It's not 9, it's 12.
Yeah. This is a lot of damage that's coming across. And that Goblin, yes, it was a 1/1 when attacking because it came from the Rabble Master, but it's a 3/3 because of 2 Ascendancy triggers. Well, now Battle-Wise Hoplite is a 3/3. It's also got protection. So it'll be okay. As I said, we'll do a little bit of scrying action here. The first one from the Heroic trigger from Battle-Wise Hoplite. We might see a second scry here, depending on what Joe does with the card from God's Willing Resolving. But what matters here is Merriam has done a nice way of navigating into a beautiful board.
Yeah, and you see Merriam discarding things like Hordeling Outburst because it's not more creatures he needs right now. He needs to make sure that next turn his attack is just over-the-top lethal. He has plenty of creatures, so what he's looking for non-creature spells that are instants, and that's probably it. We already know that I think that in his hand, one of the remaining cards is Lightning Strike.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably, if not it or Stoke the Flames, is the best kind of card he could have here.
It's a terrifying situation. And this is just the power of Jeskai Ascendancy. Again, Dylan Donegan did a fantastic job of highlighting exactly this last weekend when we were in Seattle for our Season 4 Invitational, but you see it on display here yet again from Merriam. You're kind of wondering, at least I was, why is he keeping a second one of those? That seems like the easiest discard, but the fact that it can pump the creature so much, you get to really just work your way through your deck, find a treasure cruise, and then who knows what's going to happen.
Joe has to kill Ross this turn. He has to deal 12. Even if Joe finds a white ordeal and cracks it, I imagine Joe is dead.
Hey, going 18 just might not be enough.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And this is going to be a fun situation for Ross, because I think that's Joe's line. If he does that play, he'll have Ross dead in 2 turns. He'll have to survive for those turns. But yeah, you see he's going to make the play, and now the question is just how much damage can Ross do? Joe has 2 blockers.
There's the Ordeal of Heliod.
It's going to be a lot with 2 loots and every spell double pumping his team.
It doesn't take much.
It doesn't take much.
And if one of those cards that he finds is his treasure cruise, I can't imagine we're going to play another turn, but he doesn't have one just yet. Ordeal's going to come in. Of course, it'll trigger the Heroic on favorite Hoplite.
This is the best line Joe has available to him. I can't imagine Joe expects this to go well, but he's playing to the out that he has.
It's the best line, and chances are it's the only line that he has access to. So he's got to take what he can get. And we'll see if what he can get is good enough.
Maybe Ross looted to a land. Maybe he discarded his last card's a land. It's unlikely, but
For
you got to hope.
Yeah, for some reason I find that extremely unlikely. Betaway's Hoplight's feeling a little frisky. Top card going to go to the bottom here from Aqueous Form. Now will trigger the ordeal, so Lossett's going to go up to 18. Looks like Merriam may just take all the damage. He's not really in much danger of dying. Maybe a little chump block action here, maybe not.
Well, I actually like the attack from Joe. Maybe he's trying to get Ross to block here, thinking that has to happen if Joe's to have a chance. Ross not buying it. Oh, Jeskai Charm was the draw.
That's a
Ross.
good magic card. He's going to start by casting Magma Jet on Heliod's Pilgrim. That'll trigger Ascendancy twice. Lightning Strike. He doesn't even care what these cards are. Those are going in the graveyard. Jeskai Charm is now here. Oh, he also gets the Scry too. Can't forget about that. So some cards will go to the top or the bottom.
Well, you pump the creatures twice. You can pump them 3 more times with this Jeskai Charm. And that is a lot of damage.
So I believe the reason Joe made that attack is because he does have Triton Tactics in his hand. And that's fine. But again, even if Joe had a card like Stubborn Denial right now, the fact that just Ascendancy would trigger +1/+1 twice means I don't even think Stubborn Denial would do it.
Every creature's been pumped 5 times.
Yeah.
So what that means from Ross is he has... Well, I guess that one goblin up at top has only been pumped 3 times.
Yeah, I think that the goblin at the top has gotten 2 triggers. We'll see exactly what mode he's using on Jeskai Ascendancy. I'd be surprised if it wasn't the pump mode.
Yeah.
And you see the extension of the hand as Ross Merriam is thrilled that he's able to get the W there. He moves on to 2-1, and what matters quite a bit for him, taking down Joe Lossett. Lossett will move down to 1-2. Remember, everyone in Group D was 1-1 all the way through, so only one of those players is going to make it on the way through.
Yeah.
To Sunday play initially as we work our way through a couple more rounds here, but Merriam thrilled with the W there.
Yeah, so Merriam's going to avoid playing next round. He's not going to have to fight for elimination just yet. For Lossett, he's got to hope this blue-white heroic deck shows up for him next round because he'll be playing for his tournament life.
Yeah, again, a lot of players playing this deck, some having success, some not. Steven Mann 2-1 with heroic. Tom Ross 0-3 with heroic. And then Lossett 1-2 with heroic. It was a big gamble to play that deck this weekend. It's worked out just okay, I think, for the players.
Yeah, well,